Hello everybody, Scratch here. Welcome back to another episode where we'll be covering the workspace. So that's the area where you do all your pizzazz, all the code, whatever you want to call it. So after recording this, I realized that this is the last episode of the Scratch Beginner's Guide series. And next time, we're going to be doing our first project. Alright guys, see you there. Let's get straight into it. So, here we are on the Scratch front page. And as you may know, we are going to be learning about the workspace. But how do we get there? Either you could get to a blank workspace or a used workspace, like the workspace of this project, Moondash. And I like to refer to it as a canvas, as an empty, intimidating white sheet, just wanting paint and life. Alright, let's get there. So, there are two ways you can get to a blank canvas. You either click on the create button in the ribbon bar, as we have already covered, and another way is by clicking on the My Stuff button, which takes you to this page where you can click on New Project. We have just landed. So, as usual, top to bottom. So, first up in this little ribbon, we have the Scratch button, which just redirects you back to the Scratch front page, as we are all familiar with. And just to the right of that, we have this globe, which leads a drop-down menu of all the languages that you can switch it to. There's even Spanish. And to the right of that, we have the File button. And when we click on it, we have this drop-down menu. So, we have the New button, which just creates a new project. Save Now just saves the project. Save as a copy just saves the project that you have right now as a copy. And this can be really useful when you're making big changes to your project. So if you do mess up, you have the original copy. Load from your computer, and to load from your computer, you have to save to your computer. So if I press save to your computer, it saves it with the title name in the download, and you do all your stuff, save it to your desktop in the area that you'd like, and if we load it, we choose the file that we just saved so you can use it for future reference. And when you do load it, it replaces the contents of the current project that you're loading it into. So let's say I had this turn 15 degrees, I chose a sprite. Now I will explain how to do all of this. So if you loaded it, all of this will be wiped away and replaced with the one that you loaded. Alright, back to business. We have the edit button, which has the restore sprite button and the turn on turbo mode. Now we just deleted a sprite, so we can restore it via this button. And we can also turn on turbo mode, which makes things really fast. We'll turn it off. And to the right we have the tutorials button, which in the name gives you tutorials. So if you want to learn how to do something, need a bit of inspiration, this is your place to go. You can learn how to create animations that talk, you can learn how to make a clicker game, and hundreds more. Maybe not hundreds. Okay, and just to the right we have the title, which is just the name of the project. I'm going to call this Test. And just to the right of that, we have the Share button, which shares it to the whole community, the 80 million Scratchers that code every day. And just to the right we have the C project page, which literally says it, see the project page, and we know the project page as we went through it last episode. Okay, now to the right of that we have the My Stuff button. Now we've already seen this button and what it does, but there's just another copy here. And here we have the drop down menu with your name and a list of stuff, which we covered also last episode, as that's in the Scratch front page. Now, moving down, we're going to get to the real stuff. So, we have these 3 tabs. We have code, costumes, and sounds. Right now we're in the code tab, and we'll explain that. So, just beneath us, we have the code palette. Well, the block palette, sorry. And like how an artist has his colorful palette full of splashy colors that go on the blank canvas, we have ours with all the blocks divided into categories, and they're also color coded. So blue for motion is all the blocks related to motion, like move 10 steps or turn 15 degrees. Or let's say the sound category, we can play sound meow until done. And there are hundreds of blocks to mess around with, and I encourage you to by dragging it on and clicking on it to see what it does. And just a quick lesson, steps are pixels. So move 10 steps is move 10 pixels. Okay, so that's the block palette, and I'm not going to be explaining all the blocks, but when we start coding games or whatever, probably next tutorial, we're going to be explaining the blocks as I go along. So I might drag this block, for example, create the script, and then explain the script, because you have to understand this stuff. Okay, we have this little mini version of the sprites. Sprites are just characters, that's how we call them in Scratch. We have zoom in, zoom out. So if I drag this block, I can zoom out and I can zoom in, and the equals button just equalizes it or just resets it to default. And we can scroll up or down, and we can move left to right. Yeah. Okay. These are the action buttons. Green flag starts every project. Stop button stops it. Over here we have the display menu, so we can display it as what it is right now, or we can go to this alternate display and we can full screen it and minimize it. Here we have the backdrop, and its width is 480 pixels and its height is 360. And below we have all the information about the sprites. Like here we have the sprite name. I'm gonna call this guy Scratch Cat. Yeah. And to the right we have the X position, which is just left and right, so where it is left and right. So like here we have negative 191. We can move it to further there. You get the gist. And we can also manually set it to what we want it to. So over here we can set it to 0, which is the exact center of left and right. Y is the same but up and down, and you can also manually set it. The show just shows and hides it, pretty obvious. Size sets the size. Direction sets the direction. And we have 3 options. So all around makes it so it can go in a 360 circle and you can be crazy. Left and right makes it so we can only face left and right, and no rotation at all. It just stays in its position. so it can't rotate at all. Alright, here we have the sprite library kind of thing. So this is where all your sprites will go. Here we have this little circle with a little kitty cat or puppy, I think. Yeah, it's a puppy. So we have some options. The magnifying glass is choose a sprite, which takes you to the extensive Scratch library where you can filter out between sprites. You can search sprites, and when you find one that you like, you can click on it. And if it has multiple costumes, when you hover over it, it will display them. And it shows in the sprite library. And just above the magnifying glass is the paint, in which you can paint your own sprite. And this takes us to the costume tab. Now there is a bit more of the code tab, which we'll just go through quickly before we go to the costume tab. Just above, surprise, it will surprise you with a random sprite. And guess what? We got sailboat. And we can upload a sprite, like if you got one from the internet and you want to upload it. And if you do get one from the internet, make sure it's copyright free and always credit. And just to the right, we have the exact same thing, but with backdrops. And if we click on the backdrop, exact same thing, but there's no motion category for backdrops. A backdrop can't really move. And if you do want it to move with a scrolling effect, that's a bit more advanced, and you have to get around that using a sprite. Alright, back to the costume. Oh, and it's a backdrops tab. Okay, let's go to the costumes tab. So the costumes tab is this sprite costume. So, like, there's no code here, but there's code here. So the code in Scratch.mit will only affect Scratch.mit. The costume for Scratch.mit is only for Scratch.mit. That's pretty self-explanatory. Okay. So we have vector mode and bitmap mode. So vector, I'll go through the vector menu. We can name the costume, we can undo, we can redo, we can fill. So like if I selected this little bit, I could change the fill color of it. This costume is a bit weird. I'm just gonna choose a random costume. Okay, that's perfect. Because the sailboat is a bit awkward. Alright, so I can select the sun, well, this circle, change the fill, I can add gradients. So we can change the color, saturation, or the brightness. We can also add an outline. I can make this fully black. I can change the thickness, undo, redo. If you select multiple, you can group it and ungroup it. You can send layers. So right now this one's at the back. I can make it forward. I can make it. Now this only sends it one layer back, one layer forward, while these buttons send it straight to the back or straight to the front. We can flip it horizontally or vertically. We can delete that specific one. We can copy and then paste it somewhere. We can drag it. There's so much functionality. This is the select tool. This is the reshaping tool, which you can reshape several shapes. This is the paint. You can rub it out, and you can change the not the color. You can change the thickness of the rubber using the arrows or with a manual one. You can fill a certain color. So if I hover over this, I can fill it with the color that's selected. Text, type of text. I can change the font or the color. And there's no outline for this. The line tool. Oh, and by the way, if you hold shift, you can create a perfectly straight line. A circle, and if you press shift, you make a perfect circle. can change the outline. Same with square, perfect square if you choose that, or you can a rectangle. And look what we've done. Bitmap makes it's more a pixely look. So this is the same thing. So I can fill this in. It's practically the same, just with a few tweaks. So yeah, alright. Now lastly we have the sounds tab. So with the sounds tab, we have the sound that comes with the sprite. So with Sailboat can pop. Well, a sprite that doesn't have any sound associated with it just comes with pop. So I can change pop to, well, I wouldn't recommend renaming sounds, but you can if you want to, because if you rename it to something else you may get confused. You can highlight a strip of the sound, copy it, you can paste it, you can copy to a new one, the one that you just copied. You can play the sound, you can make it faster, I can make it louder, softer, I can mute it, I'll reverse that, I can make it fade in, fade out, I can reverse it, make it robot. Doesn't even sound like a pop anymore. Okay, you can select different ones. Oh, you can, when you highlight the strip, you can delete it. You can, same thing with the backdrop and the sprite. You can choose a sound, record a sound, you can surprise yourself, or you can upload. So we can choose a sound. We can use this to play it. Alright. And I'm pretty sure that's it for the workspace. So luckily we finished it in this tutorial. So next tutorial, you get it, you guessed it, we're going to be making projects. And I'm very sorry about my inconsistency with my upload schedule. I had a few things here and there, but as I improve as a YouTuber, Scratch YouTuber that is, I will get better and better. And if you guys could do me a favor, like and subscribe, as that really motivates me to create more content, and just makes me happy to see people are actually benefiting from my videos. Alright, Scratch Warrior out. Pew.